I want you two to lock arms real quick. Lock arms. And say I would split you two right down the middle. Now let go. Let go of each other. Right down the middle, I just created energy. That would be splitting the atom and creating energy.
Biomass is like basically the soil, the dirt that's in the ground. And natural gas is basically fire, stuff that has to do with fire.
Wind versus coal heat, but it's also renewable. It's not a fossil fuel. A fossil fuel is like coal. It's not renewable, and it's like once you run out, you can't get it.
Nuclear energy, which is made from uranium. And if you don't know, there's a picture right down here. It is metallic and it is rock and it's kind of powdery. And in the reactor, which is this a model of, there is a fission, which is called nuclear fission. It goes from a neutron and it separates into fission fragments and it keeps going wider until it makes the energy. That is what takes place in this, which is a model of a nuclear reactor. It has the fuel rods and the uranium pellets represented by marshmallows. And if you do have one of these, they are really big and it is very nuclear and radioactive. Dre?
I'm going to show you an example of a nuclear power plant. You know how like the smoke comes out of like the smoke and the steam and stuff? Well, it's really not. It looks like clouds, but it's really steam and smoke. Let me show you an example.
This right here, this is the uranium is sent to the desert to absorb this because it's highly radioactive.
This is the steam tower that you can see, and this is the reactor, and these are the fuel rods. This powers the turbines, which turn them, and the turbines turn the generator, which the generator powers all of this, and there's a lot of chemical reactions. And so that's what makes the steam and makes the clouds.
We're here at Pottstown Middle School for the 3rd Annual Energy Expo, and I'm with the originator of the program, Mrs. Winterbottom, and 2 of her students, Maxine and Brittany. Mrs. Winterbottom, tell us a little bit about how this whole project got started 3 years ago.
So it came from the PICO Energizing Education Program. It's a grant through PICO Energy that provides us with hands-on kits for our classrooms to teach about energy and energy conservation. But the part that is so important is the community project that they require, and they give you $500 to do a community project. And we have decided here at the middle school that our community project would be to teach 4th graders about energy and energy conservation, and hence the fact the 3rd Annual Energy Expo.
Well, Brittany, you and Maxine, obviously you put together 2 different exhibits for today. Tell us a little bit about what was involved with putting that together.
Well, we started our research and everything on February 27th. It was frustrating, yet it was fun because, you know, we all knew that in the end it's going to pay off because we're going to have fun and teach the 4th graders what we have learned from Mrs. Winterbottom.
Maxine, what was your project? What did you work on? Brittany.
Well, it was interesting because at the beginning it feels like you have all the time in the world when really if you work on it you don't. It's difficult because with the 3D project especially you have to worry about not just the idea but if it's going to work because a lot of people are using actual electricity to get things to move on their own and it's just a complicated process.
What about the part now? I know that today you're presenting both to students at the middle school but as Mrs. Winterbottom said, also 4th graders. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
It's interesting because we use bigger words because that's just the technical term, and then when you have 4th graders, you have to put it into terms that they can understand, so they're not confused. So that's kind of a challenge in a way because we're hearing the same words over and over. It's hard to explain to a 4th grader what a turbine is. So stuff like that is a little complicated, but it's been pretty fun.
Maxine, what about you?
I think it's interesting. There's a lot of different personalities, and when I see that shy child that's, you know, they're interested, but then again they're scared to ask the question because they don't want to sound silly. It's like that was me 4 years ago, so it's very fun. And I remember when, you know, we would go to things like this, not here because this is only the 3rd annual, but just we would go and we'd get things presented to us, and it was interesting. It's cool.
And now, what have you learned at all about the teaching process? You know, every day Mrs. Winterbottom and all the other teachers are on one side of the desk and you're on the other side of the desk, and you have those feelings about teachers. Having gone through this experience, has that changed at all for you?
Well, I remember when I was younger, I always wanted to be an art teacher because I loved art and teaching. And, you know, everybody would say, well, if you're a teacher, you'd be a mean teacher. I feel like it's difficult because you have those children that are really interested, but you have those children that, you know, they're just like, whatever, I'm just here because I'm getting out of school. And there was a child that was like that, and I was like, well, if you know so much about it, would you like to come up and teach me, or, you know, teach us? Because I'm really interested to see what you have learned and what you know from, you know, other groups. And he was actually very good at it. Like, he explained it really well, and I was proud of him. But just the fact that you have those kids that, I mean, you're always going to have those kids that think they know everything, so.
And Brittany, and I'll get your name right this time, okay? Brittany, having gone through this experience, have you thought about wanting to be a teacher at some time?
No, it's not my field. It's interesting because you have those kids where you have to be stern with and you have to be on them about it, because otherwise they're going to do what they want. You can't be kidding around and playing like you can with some of the other kids. Like, even with teachers, it's like that. You have a little more leeway with some teachers than others. So it's a little tricky to figure out which is which, because you have the kids that act shy and they're like interested, but then at the same time they goof off because their friends are goofing off. So it's interesting to find that balance between having them pay attention and being able to explain it in a fun way.
Okay. Now, since this is an energy expo and we're constantly within our country talking about the need for energy and renewable energy and energy that is not renewable, where do you all stand on this discussion?
Well, actually, my group researched oil, and Mr. Lindley, Dr. Lindley, the superintendent of our schools, he came over and he was talking to us about the presidential election and everything. The main thing right now is with oil, do we continue drilling it, or, you know, do we have that transition? And I told him that, you know, as me, it's kind of my obligation to tell you that we need to conserve oil as much as possible because this is our energy expo. It's all about that. But the fact that, you know, I understand that's what our nation's based off of. So for us to just transition like that, it's really hard. So I definitely think we should cut back on oil use, though, and, you know, more renewable uses.
Okay, but we know it can't be cold turkey. Everybody can't stop driving their car tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, like, if we slowly transition into that, I think it would be a better place.
Well, ladies, it is obvious that the two of you have gained a great deal of experience from this project and have a lot to share, not only with the fourth grade students, but with your fellow students. And I want you to know that we're proud of all the work that you've done. Mrs. Winterbottom, this is an excellent project. We need to keep doing it. We need to keep doing more of this. STEM education is part of where clearly 21st century education belongs, and this is a great example of it. Ladies, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good day here at POTTSTOWN High. Good to be back. Seem to get here a couple times a year at least for various functions, and it's good to be back here once again. And appreciate the opportunity to meet with you, talk to you about what my job is. But let's first start with some background, personal background about myself, and then that'll sort of lead into my background legislatively or from a electoral process as a public official, and then really what we're doing today as you go to schools, you meet with businesses who have federal issues, you just connect with the district, certainly meet with people in the district and get feedback about certain things that Congress might be working on. And then we go back next week for this current fiscal year. The federal government will spend about $3.6 trillion. But only take in about $2.2 trillion in revenues. So that leaves what? A deficit of $1.4 trillion. So where do we get that money? Our Treasury sells bonds and borrows the money. We sell bonds to any bond holder who wants to buy that, Some of those bondholders are here in the United States, are Americans. Some of them are foreigners. Some of them are from every country across the globe, including England, China, Japan. And so we keep borrowing that money to pay for our 3.6 trillion spending, and then you have the question of how do you keep rolling up this debt year after year after year and not pay for it? What do you do about that? And that becomes a big issue for Congress too.
We're here today at Pottstown High School, and I'm here with Congressman Gerlach. Congressman, you're here today to speak to students in our Advanced Placement American Government class. What prompted you to want to take time out of a busy schedule to come talk to these students?
Well, I really appreciate the invitation and be able to come and talk to the students about what my job is, what I do every day, both in Washington as well as back in the district. Hopefully that'll give them some idea of what elected members of Congress and even other elected officials do to represent people in their respective districts. And also hopefully hear back from them about, as young people, what issues are important to them as they look ahead in the future, as they look ahead to future education, future jobs and employment, future families. So it might be a good opportunity not only to impart some knowledge to them about what our process is about in this republic, but also as constituents to hear back from them and get some good insights and input from them.
Well, you know, most of the students that you're going to speak to today are not that far away from turning 18
right.
and being able to be part of the process. What would you tell them about the importance of taking part in the process?
Well, there's a lot of concern in our society today that so much is controlled by those who are lobbyists in the process, representing some interest group, but what they need to understand as citizens is there's no more important lobbyist for an elected official than the constituents he or she represents. And they as citizens have a lot of power in terms of trying to educate their elected officials about issues and then ultimately participating as voters in the process to control the outcome of who gets elected. So they have a lot of power as a citizen that they may or may not understand at this age, and hopefully I can share with them some thoughts on that and how important it is to register, to participate in the electoral process, to vote every single year for all the offices that are up for election, because they're all very important in contributing to the quality of life that they will have. And so they need to understand that they have an important role to play in this republic as a voter and also to educate their elected officials as a citizen in this process. So hopefully I can share some of that with them.
Knowing that it's important to not only be a voter but to be an educated voter, what tips could you give them about the process of what types of things should they be doing to understand not only how important their vote is, but using their vote wisely?
Well, they need to understand that there's not one source of news or information that they should rely on, that we have a very diverse economy, but a very diverse media as well, and that if they're really going to make an informed decision about who to vote for and who to support at every level of government, they need to do their research and their homework. They need to look at different sources of information and sort of through that process come to understand the issue more fully from various points of view, and then from that obviously make a decision as to who they think would best represent them at the school district level, at the county, at the township or borough level, and certainly in Harrisburg in the state legislature or in Congress. So they need to do a little homework, as they're doing right now as students here at Pottstown High. But if they do that, they can educate and inform themselves and then be a really good voter when it comes time for them to participate in the process.
Well, obviously a number of people believe that politics begins first at the local level. And we're a borough of 5.5 square miles, 22,000 people. What would you say to encourage our young people to take an active role in the political process of running for office?
Well, just start by participating as maybe a campaign volunteer. Figure out what race is of interest to you, figure out who you'd like to support, and start to work on a campaign and get to understand how a campaign's put together, what issues are important in that campaign, how you interact with voters, how you get message across to voters and information to voters, and really see from the grassroots perspective what goes into getting somebody elected to office. And then maybe at some point they'll take a lot of interest in that from that experience, and maybe someday themselves run for borough council or school director or mayor or state legislator or whatever. Just get that basic local experience, and from that build on it, and maybe someday you'll be running for president of the United States yourself. So that's how it works.
Well, clearly we appreciate you coming today, and and understanding the mission of public education. In Pennsylvania, there are about 1.8 million students in public education. Those people are the future of our country, a future of our state. They are going to be the congressmen, the lawyers, the doctors of the future. So we certainly appreciate whatever words of wisdom you can give them today, and we want to thank you for being here.
Thanks very much. It'll be a lot of fun, and thanks for having me back. It's always good to be here at Pottstown High.
Thank you.
Thank you.